is what?
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
And from your perspective, from the administrative perspective, you have a lesser burden to prove, correct?
Correct.
In order to prove whether or not someone violated sheriff's office policies or county merit rules, the burden is less than the criminal burden. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you know what the conclusion of those two criminal charges were after Mr. Dean went to court?
At the conclusion of the court hearing, he was found guilty of open house party.
And what is an open house? What is that charge all about in layman's terms, if you can?
It's basically a social gathering in a residence where alcohol is being served to minors, or people under the age of 21.
Okay. And so he was found guilty. Do you know if he was, received any kind of a sentence or anything? Not specifically, if you know what it was, but do you know?
I believe he was found guilty, and adjudication was withheld, and he had to pay court fines.
I want to introduce this into evidence. It's the judgment and sentence from the criminal case. It shows that he was found, what he was found guilty of and what the sentence was. So just to be clear, while in the criminal court, Judge Marshall did not find him guilty of giving alcohol to minors. From the administrative perspective, did your investigation sustain that charge, that he had sustained both of those charges?
Yes.
And when you interviewed Mr. Dean as part of your internal affairs investigation, did he admit that he had violated the misdemeanor injurious to the department standard that he was charged with?
Yes.
Based on his actions in giving alcohol to the minors?
Yes, he did.
I want to direct your attention to this issue of the domestic violence arrest and report that I spoke to the board about initially. Can you just tell us what was the connection between, in this case, between this domestic violence arrest? Was it involve Kelly Capps, and who was the defendant in that case?
Yes, the victim was Kelly Capps, and the defendant was her boyfriend, Stephen DeHutt.
And do you remember the date that the alleged incident of domestic violence occurred?
I believe it was December 11th,
Okay.
2011.
Okay, and I'm going to give you a copy of the incident report. I'm not going to ask you specifics about it, but I don't want you to have to just remember dates and things like that. During the course of your internal investigation, did Kelly Capps talk to you about the fact that Travis Dean had been involved in having her boyfriend arrested for domestic violence?
Yes.
And what did she tell you had happened in the early morning hours of December 11th when this alleged incident of domestic violence occurred? What did Kelly Capps tell you had happened?
She had made the statement that she and her boyfriend had been involved in an argument, and that she knew that Deputy Dean was working that night. She sent him a text message asking what he was, what are you doing, what are you up to? And she also texted him that she may need a ride.
As part of your administrative investigation, did you get a copy of those text messages?
I did.
And when you reviewed them, did you find that they corroborated what Kelly Capps had told you about what she had texted Deputy Dean that night?
Yes.
I'd like to hand you a copy of, someone typed up the text message, I think it was, is that your office that typed it?
No, actually, I think Travis
Okay.
had provided that to us off his computer, and then we later went and took photographs of his phone.
Okay. So when you review those text messages, first of all, what time were those occurring between Deputy Dean and Ms. Capps?
Initially, it began December 10th, 2011 at 21:07 hours, and that's where she's telling Deputy Dean that she's going to a party at Stephen's house.
Okay. And how does Deputy Dean respond to that?
And it says, well, hers is, well, about to head to Stephen's, I guess, having a party there, I guess. So I'll talk to you later. Have a good night, hubby. And then he responds back, have fun, be safe, wifey. I'm here all night if you want, need anything.
Did you think that was odd that they were referring to each other as wifey and hubby in text messages?
Yes.
And did you ask Kelly Capps about that?
I did.
What did she say?
She had just made the statement that they would joke around all the time, and that Travis had made the statement that I'm gonna marry her someday.
Okay, so directing your attention to later, late that evening, early morning hours of going into December 11th. Just, can you give us the general gist of, you don't have to read them to us, but what the text messages between Kelly Capps and Travis Dean were about?
December 11th, 2011, at about 2:53 in the morning, Kelly Capps sends Deputy Dean a text message that says, "Hey, what are you doing?" He sends one right back stating, "Driving to the jail, what's up?"
And does she go on to tell him about a fight she's had with her boyfriend, and that the boyfriend's actually left the residence, and she's looking for a ride home, essentially?
Yes.
Now, to be clear, she does say in that in the series of text messages that her boyfriend had hit her, didn't she?
She did.
Okay. And when you were doing your investigation, is there anything else in the text messages that indicate an act of domestic violence took place other than he hit her, or her saying he hit me?
Yeah, she refers to her boyfriend punching holes in the walls.
Okay, but in terms of physical injury to her, that's the only thing she said, that he had hit her?
Correct.
Okay. Was it, as you reviewed those text messages, was the gist of it that she was contacting Deputy Dean for law enforcement help, or as a friend, or what did you
Objection,
find?
the question calls for speculation.
I'll restate the question. When you interviewed Deputy Dean, did he tell you that her contact of him, he knew, was for a ride home, not for law enforcement intervention?
Yes.
And in fact, he didn't send another deputy to her, to the house where she was, and he didn't call 911 or anything, did he?
No, he didn't.
Okay. Without getting into the details of the facts behind the domestic violence arrest, other than what we've already talked about, what happened next? This was December 11th, early Sunday morning, with regards to the arrest of Stephen DeHutt.
It was several days later. Deputy Dean was in the restaurant, eating at the Pearson Family Restaurant, and Kelly was working, Ms. Capps, I'm sorry. And they struck up a conversation. Deputy Dean had asked her, in general conversation, what had happened the other night when he got the text. She began to give him information of what happened, and Deputy Dean said that she told him that she was struck in the side of the face.
That's what he said she said?
That's what, yes.
Okay. And did
So-
she corroborate that? Did she say that she admitted anything like that to Deputy Dean?
No. No.
Okay. What did he do?
I'm going to object to the extent that his line of questioning is intended to convey in any way that Deputy Dean was untruthful in his charging affidavit or any other document related to this case. That aspect of this case was found to be unfounded during the eye investigation by Sergeant Tatum. So I'd ask that those questions not be allowed, since the issue of his credibility in that report is not in question.
And that's why I started out by saying we're not going to get into the specifics of the report. But in terms of the board understanding what happened with regards to the arrest of Mr. DeHutt, that's what I was trying to elicit from him. All right, so after Deputy Dean went to the restaurant, your investigation revealed that he questioned Ms. Capps about the events that had occurred the night she texted him, correct?
Yes.
And did he ultimately prepare an affidavit for the arrest of Stephen DeHutt for domestic violence based on that event that had happened, that she had texted him about?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know, was Stephen DeHutt actually arrested on the basis of Mr. Dean's affidavit?
Yes, he was.
When did that occur?
That, I believe, was December 14, 2011.
And was that, in other words, is that the same day he went into the restaurant?
Yes.
Okay, so he went into the restaurant, he talked to Kelly Capps, he prepared an arrest affidavit, and then how was it that Mr. DeHutt was actually physically arrested?
Two other patrol deputies went to the residence of Mr. DeHutt, I believe on Holly Boulevard in DeLand, and they made the physical arrest.
So was Deputy Dean working in the zone where the incident had occurred at that time?
No.
So the arrest of Mr. DeHutt in DeLand was outside his zone?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Do you know, or did your investigation determine after Stephen DeHutt was arrested, whether or not Mr. Dean had any contact with Kelly Caps?
Yes, he did.
And what was the nature of that contact?
We were told that he sent her a text saying, "I just arrested your boyfriend."
Okay. So as soon as Stephen DeHutt's arrested, he contacts Kelly Caps and tells her, "I've just arrested your boyfriend"?
Yes.
I want to ask you just in general, just some things about domestic violence arrest, so the board is clear on what the issues were with regards to your investigation of his handling of this domestic violence arrest. I'm not asking about anything in the report at this point in time. What was unusual about the way that he handled this call, this domestic violence charge?
You can object on the basis there's no demonstration. This witness is competent to talk about, seemingly asking you to testify as an expert about when an arrest should be made in a domestic violence case and when it should not, and how much time between the event and the arrest is too long, and at that point should matter to be referred to the state attorney's office for investigation. I feel uncomfortable with this line of questions. I've been given information this witness has the depth of knowledge necessary to give competent answers.
He's been a law enforcement officer since 1998. I can ask him how many domestic violence arrests he's made in his career. I don't know if he has that number on the top of his head, but I'm not asking him as an expert. I'm asking him as a law enforcement officer and also as an internal affairs officer who's familiar with the directives of the sheriff's office. What do the policies require? What are they supposed to do in terms of when they encounter domestic violence?
That's the question, and that's fine. The question was, what was unusual? Well, I think the better question might be, and one I want to object to, what do the policies and procedures say?
What do the policies require with regards to a domestic violence arrest? And what about this case was outside of those policies, about Deputy Dean's handling this case outside of those policies?
Well, per policy, it states that when responding to a domestic violence call, statements will be obtained from the victim and
I
defendant.
said I wouldn't object, but now I'm afraid I'm going to have to. Or do you have these policies to enter into evidence? Otherwise, this testimony is hearsay.
Hearsay is admissible and before the board. He's not charged specifically with violating that policy, but his handling of the call was part of the internal investigation and part of what was sustained against him. So
Hearsay is admissible to the extent the board wants to accept it.
Right.
It's free to give it little weight, some weight,
Sure.
or as much weight as it chooses.
Sure. That's why we generally